Let me repeat what Jim said. This is an educational event, so no investment advice is meant or given, and any suggestion as to running around with naked options is not a pornographic suggestion, but a tactical one. Let me ask a couple of questions before I get started here. How many of you have read Edwards and McGee? A few. How many of you have read it more than once? Okay, you're... Huh?
2 or 3 paragraphs.
2 or 3 paragraphs. Okay, well, I have readers who reread it every year, and it certainly doesn't do them any harm. How many of you have read Macmillan? Good. How many of you use a model in your trading? Not as many as should, let me say. How many of you would characterize yourselves as technical analysts? A few. So let's see, I saw a hand back here. Someone, what? I'd like to find out, yeah, okay, what kind of technical analysis?
Several types.
Huh?
Several types. I develop my systems, I get inspiration from different sources.
Okay, I mean, moving averages, oscillators?
Oh, all of the above plus more.
All of the above plus more. Okay, well, let me say the most astounding thing about the market is the ignorance of market participants, and that includes professionals, the ignorance of trends. It's actually pretty astounding. The July 7th Wall Street Journal had an article about professional fund managers. Aston River Road had cash as a percentage of their assets, 71%. Intrepid had 70% of their assets in cash. Gabelli had 66% of their assets in cash. Cook and Bynum had 42%. Gabelli Enterprise Mergers had 42%. What's the matter with these people? They're sitting on one of the biggest bull markets in history, and most of their money's in cash. You know, it makes you wonder either where their heads are at, where their methods are at, where their systems are at, where their risk control is at. But it's certainly not on the line. I mean, the profits that have been made in this market over since March '09 are astounding. Just the last couple of years have been, have been fantastic. I mean, some of my accounts are up 100%. My personal family accounts. So, actually, I think that's a question that I like to ask speakers, which is, what's your P&L look like? Well, mine looks fantastic. The reason it looks fantastic is because I have a method and I have a system. But if you look at the market, you look at professionals, you have to scratch your head at the blind ignorance as to trend trading. Not just the Wall Street Journal article here, but in 2008, Morningstar gave its Manager of the Year award to a manager who had, guess what percentage return? Huh? 8? Minus 16.9. Minus manager of the year with a minus 16.9% return. I find that hilarious. The reason, of course, that they gave it to him was because all the other mutual fund managers lost 47%. You know, professionals, or professionals between quotes. But this rampant ignorance is not just present in practitioners, it's present in academics and theoreticians. I mean, if you look at modern portfolio theory, and you look at the way modern portfolio theory measures risk, you have to shake your head and say, well, you know, what have these guys been drinking or smoking? Modern portfolio theory thinks that risk is equal to standard deviation, and it misses a vital point. It doesn't matter what the standard deviation is. If you buy a stock in a downtrend, you have put yourself on the wrong side of probability by trading against the trend. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But the signs of ignorance are everywhere. The signs of ignorance as to how to trade a trend, how to manage a trend, how to recognize a trend. For example, the portfolio manager of the University of Miami, pyramided WorldCom as it was plunging to the bottom, until finally he had cornered the market for it. What he's going to do with it after that, who knows? So this little talk right here is intended to give you a quick look at how Edwards and McGee look at trend analysis, and to acquaint you with the vocabulary of the market. Now, you can you may be fully qualified after this talk, actually. Back in the day, in the 98, 99, 2000, I used to give a course at the University of California Extension at Berkeley. And when I started these seminars, it was a one-day seminar. When I start these seminars, I say, yeah, well, to each of the students, you know, why are you here? And this guy, first guy asked in this class, said, I'm here because I work at Cisco. And I said, well, I'm sorry to hear that. He said, so am I. I said, well, why are you here? He said, the engineer that sat in the cubicle next to him had sold his stock right after Cisco broke, virtually at the top. And he had asked this engineer, how did you know to do that? And the guy said, I took Charles Bassetti's course. So in one day, this guy learned enough to preserve his capital from a course that is as simple as this one. As I say, there is a limited vocabulary to the market, and it's easily understandable. There are as many kinds of technical analysis as there are Carter's little liver pills.
We lost the president.
Whoop. Uh-oh. Oh, that's because I wasn't fooling with it.
It's back. Okay.
So I'll discuss some of those, but the first thing I'm going to do is discuss the classical literature, the classical canon, which is in Edwards and McGee's book, of which I am now the editor and credited by the publisher as the co-author. Probably at this point I've done as much work on it as Edwards and McGee. I've basically modernized the book and put in a lot of new material pertinent to the modern case. Let's see. So this is the 10th edition. And I'm just going to step through the classical chart patterns. This is obviously a downtrend. That may seem obvious, but as I say, when WorldCom was plunging to the bottom, a professional money manager who managed not millions of dollars couldn't recognize it. What an option trader does is doesn't buy any calls in this situation to begin with. Here's another downtrend. The thing about these downtrends are an invitation to make money. When you see them start and begin to accelerate, you can buy puts, you can sell calls, you can short the market. Any of those are valid things to do, but the one thing that for sure is not to do is to buy calls.
Yes, going back and looking at it, hindsight, it looks very straightforward. At what point of time somebody should have recognized that it will come?
Somebody's going to have to, you're going to need a mic. Have we got another mic?
He was asking, when did you recognize when it's going down? I mean, you have to recognize that at some point.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to talk about that a little later in the conversation, but the way you recognize that, or the way you would have recognized that, is with a trend line which got broken in here, and then you would have seen this right here, which is a gap. A gap like this is an invitation to trade. Okay, I'm going to talk about gaps some more here. So that's a couple of downtrends, and it speaks very clearly to the technician. And it doesn't take, it doesn't take a lot of brains or anything else. All it takes is the willingness to make a trade and to set a stop and determine what your risk is in the trade. Now, this, of course, was one of the great trades of all time, namely Lehman Brothers. Here, you can get an idea of, you're talking about how do you know when to make that trade? Well, this chart illustrates it very vividly. Here, you see the slope trend line. This trend line actually is probably 2 or 3 years long. So it gets broken here. The issue starts breaking down, and when it breaks down out of the congestion, this is an engraved invitation to sell me, sell me, sell me. I mean, once again, you can sell calls, you buy puts, you You could short the issue. I mean, if you understand what's going on, it's a license to make money. So here's an uptrend. I think this was maybe Microsoft, I forget. But when you get trends of this magnitude, well, my practice is to, when I see a market like this developing, I scale in. So I determine how much capital I'm going to devote to the issue, and then I divide it into tranches, 3, 5, 7 tranches. I put the first one in and I see what happens. If it progresses, then I put a second one on. If it progresses beyond that, I put a third one on. And I keep doing that. I keep doing that until I get my nose bloodied. But you can be buying calls in this market. You can be selling puts. And I'll address that question a little bit more later. So that's the basic vocabulary of the market. The uptrend, the downtrend, and there is a.
وشكرا لحسن متابعتكم ودعمكم لنا بالاشتراك على قناة ثقافة الفريق حتى يصلكم كل جديدنا بالوقت المناسب.